Hey friends, welcome in to GrooveSoul FM. If you've been rocking with me for a while, welcome back. If you're new here, hey, welcome in. I'm excited because today I'm doing a one of my touchy-feely album reviews. I used to do these on Instagram. They'd be like a minute and a half. I did a few of them I don't know, over the years. But I'm excited to be doing them in this longer form way because it allows me to share a fully developed thought about the albums and kind of not leave out or edit out what I used to have to do on those minute and a half videos. So today we are going to be doing our touchy feely review for S Fidelity's album, I Guess I'll Never Learn. The album came out on March 20th, spring equinox, actually. I wonder if that was intentional. I don't know. This is actually his seventh album, and this one is only 34 minutes, which for me, it feels like a sweet spot for albums. Usually, albums are like around 45 minutes to an hour, but I don't know. This just felt like a perfect sweet spot for this album, and I'll talk more about it in a second. But I was introduced to S Fidelity in 2021 with his Fidelity Radio Club project, and I fell in love with his sound immediately. There's a couple of songs off that project that are my favorite. I think it's called Tierra Street, and then the other is called Temptations. Chef's Kiss, both of them. That's when I was introduced to S Fidelity, and I really fell in love with his sound and his feeling, and I've kind of been following his work since then. But I'll say that I Guess I'll Never Learn is definitely my favorite project of 2026 so far, hands down. Now, I'm going to take you through kind of talking about the album and reviewing it in my way. I definitely have a very different, touchy feely, in the depths kind of way of talking about albums, music in general, you'll find if you stick around long enough. But I have these six, like, filters or realms that I kind of like to run my reviews through. And so every time that I do a review here, I'll touch on each of these as a way to kind of structure the way that I talk about albums with you. So the first one is First Energy. And that's where I share or I feel into like what's the first energy that I get from the album? What's the first thing that I feel? What's like my first impression? The second one is the body test. How does this feel in my body? What is the feeling? Because it's always body first for me. So, what's that feeling that I get in my body? The third one is sonic atmosphere. What is the world that this project creates? What's the textures, the colors? What am I feeling from that? It's what we call a sonic atmosphere. The next one, actually, my friend Lyndon gave me this, which is dope because I kept saying mood. It's like something in mood, and he was like, "Why don't you call it MOODRA?" Like, yo, you're such a Gemini. All the ideas is dope. But Mudra basically, so if you don't know, right, I used to teach yoga, and in yoga, Mudra is a hand gesture that when you touch your hands in a certain way, it opens up energy channels throughout the rest of your body. It leaves kind of like an energetic signature. It shifts energy in the body. So when I talk about Mudra in regards to an album review, it is what's the energetic and emotional imprint that this piece of work leaves on you. Then we have flow, sequencing, and spaciousness. So this talks about the flow of the album. How's the sequencing? Is there space? Okay, I'm someone that needs space in a project, so we'll talk about that. And then the last one is the opening and the closing. Kind of similar to First Energy for the opening, but it's a little different. Does the album open in a way that feels good? Does it close in a way that completes the album? So that's kind of what we're going to run through. So let's just get started. So let's talk about First Energy. I remember one of the first things, because I've been listening to this album back to back for like the last 3 weeks. The first energy that I remember feeling is that this album just feels so refreshing. It feels like a breath of fresh air. That's what I could think of when I think about like the first energy. When it first starts, And when I first listened to it all the way through, it was like, this feels uplifting while also being soothing. And as Fidelity had this way of making, like, you could tell the album was intentional. You could tell the concept was intentional. You can tell the way that everything moved and flowed into each other was intentional. And that kind of thing for me is very refreshing because I just don't feel like a lot of modern music, it doesn't feel intentional. And it's important to differentiate that. Sometimes you'll get albums where maybe there was a lot of intention put into it, but it didn't feel like it. And the first energy that I got from this S Fidelity album is that it just felt intentional and it felt very refreshing. You could tell that S Fidelity took the time to produce and curate this project. I felt properly guided and led through the project. And that might sound like a little bit too woo woo, but for me, I feel like that's something that's important as a listener. Do I feel like I can get lost in this project? Do I feel like I'm going to be carried from one song to the other? Um, in a way that feels good. And I felt that from this S Fidelity project. That is a filter and a perspective that I run any album or piece of work through. So first energy just felt good, intentional, refreshing. The last thing I'll say about the first energy is I remember it feeling a little bit nostalgic. Now, that might sound interesting, but there were certain instrumentals on here that S Fidelity produced that felt very familiar to me, and I will talk about that in just a second. But there was something about it that felt very familiar, therefore, it felt nostalgic. I immediately felt like a sense of safety listening to this and kind of getting that first feel from it. And for me, that's like a good sign. So that's the first energy. So next, the body test. I kind of touched on this a little bit in first energy, but just in general, let me just keep it straight. This album just feels good in the body. It feels like my body needs it. Every time I listen to it, I just feel like my body responds like, yes, and play the whole 34 minutes, please. Play the whole thing. This it almost feels like well, you're definitely going to be grooving and like your head's going to be nodding and like swiveling. You're just going to feel good. It's going to make you, it inspires movement. But I will also say that it equally inspires stillness because there is a lot of space on the album. He has some amazing interludes on here. And, I'll talk about that more in like flow and sequencing. But I feel like it's this beautiful balance and dance of inspiring movement while also inspiring stillness. And the album is an upper. Like, it feels like a body upper, but in a soft and subtle way is how I would say this album feels. And I'll use my best friend Lyndon as an example. He came over here like a few days ago and he was just kind of down, like, just in one of those moods, somber. It was like a bit somber. And so he was just laying on the floor, like just chilling, kind of letting everything move through. And I was like, I think I have a perfect kind of soundtrack for this. And so I put on the S Fidelity album. We just kind of let it play through. And slowly but surely, like as we were moving through the project, he kind of lifted up, like he went from laying down on the floor to sitting straight up. And then he even made the comment of like, yo, this kind of lifted me out. Like it allowed me, it almost supported me with moving through this mood and space that I was in. And it kind of lifted me up out of it. And I think that's a beautiful way to kind of explain with a real tangible example of like the body test for this and what the album kind of allows you to facilitate when moving from one mood to another. So, yeah, that's the body test. It just feels good in the body, and I feel like it's perfect balance of movement and stillness, which inspires like lifting. Yeah. All right. So next up is the MOODRA. Okay, what's the kind of energetic signature that the album leaves? So I was reading a couple of articles about the album, and then I also kind of looked on Instagram because this was released on Jakarta Records. So they were making some posts just to kind of promote the album. And they made this post where they quoted that S. Fidelity thinks of when he produces an album, when he put together this one specifically, he thinks in terms of moods rather than just putting songs together, right? Like he thinks of like a mood environment versus just like a set of songs together. And I just thought that was the most delicious statement, and I feel like I resonate with that perspective because you can tell it's almost as if that perspective and how he moves about that was reflected beautifully in this project. So the mood felt like flow, it felt like a story was being told. um, it felt like it went from reflective to dimly lit, dark, sensual, to uplifting, to, I don't know, just human. Like it's very clear that the album was talking about intimate relationships, intimate romantic relationships, and the cycles, the mental, emotional, physical cycles that we go through in and out of as it relates to being in a relationship with someone. And so I felt like the mood kind of followed that. It all felt like an infinity. I don't know. It felt like an, if I could just think of an image, the mood just feels like an infinity where it just took you in this mood, out of it, and then back here and over here, and then back through that through line. Like it just felt like the infinity symbol, if I could think of a way to say that. Um, so it takes you, honestly, I don't know, the mood felt very human to me. And when I say that, it's like, just think about when you're in a romantic, intimate relationship with someone. It's not a straight line. It's wavy, it's up and down. There's ebbs, flows, wanes, waxes. You all move through many realms with each other. And I just feel like the mood of the album perfectly expressed that. And I think he just did a beautiful job of creating like this everlasting wave of moving you in and out of different states of being with the different stories being told by each artist. And I just, yeah, it just kind of takes you from one end of the spectrum to the other, but it all goes together cohesively, if that makes sense. So I'll close by saying the mood of this project I feel like is ever changing. I don't think that I could put one word on what the mood is for this, but it's just covering all these different topics: love, lust, grief, loss, gain, and just like all of those experiences wrapped up to one, and what that sounds like and what that feels like from S Fidelity's point of view. So that's what I would say for the MOODRA of this. Sonic atmosphere. I feel like throughout this whole video, I've been doing this. And I think that's just genuinely how this project makes me feel. If I could just, it's just like that's just the emotional world that this project created. I feel, or I see waves. I feel, and actually I see the color red. I see dark grays. See like warm light coming through the curtains. You know, if I'm just thinking of like kind of the type of world that it created, it's shadowy because I feel like the album definitely moves you through. Like the thing with shadow is you definitely need light and dark, right, to create shadow. So it just feels like warm. It's a lot of warmth to this project, a lot of shadow, and like I said, reds, dark grays, just like warm, lit light coming through the curtains. Those are the colors and the textures that I see and feel for the sonic atmosphere of this album. I also kind of talked about this album feeling like a familiar world that I've been to before or that I've experienced before. And a few of the instrumentals on the album actually remind me of the early days of the foreign exchange. That is a duo of the rapper Fonte and producer Nicolay. And specifically, a few of the instrumentals on here remind me of Nicolay's production. And when I heard that, it didn't sound or feel like S Fidelity was trying to copy Nicolay or anything like that. It just felt familiar, which for me, again, already put me in a space of like, yo, I don't know, it just evoked a feeling of safety listening to the album, and that familiarity made it feel also nostalgic in a way. Funny enough, S Fidelity is from Sweden and Nicolay is from the Netherlands. Now, they are two different nations, but they're not far from each other. So, I don't know if there's a comparison to be made there, maybe it can be made, but as Fidelity's sound and feel on some of these instrumentals absolutely reminded me of like the early days of Foreign Exchange and Nicolay's production, and I just thought that was dope. So, flow, sequence, and spaciousness. As a curator, okay, and someone who creates worlds with a playlist, and I am I take it just very serious. This is one of the most important elements of what I feel into and pay attention to when I'm listening to an album, okay? Flow, sequence, and spaciousness. As far as those three things with this album, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. It was a 10 out of 10 for me. In fact, my friend told me that listening to this album almost sounded and felt like he was listening to a playlist of mine, which that's like one of the biggest compliments, first of all. But I totally understand because the way that, first of all, that one song flowed into the other, just like they folded perfectly into each other. It was just like a perfect flow from transitioning from this song to the next song. There was this perfect balance between pieces that were lyric heavy, between those that were minimal lyrics, and between those that didn't have lyrics at all. And look, if you're going to make an album, leave space. Please leave space because the way that S Fidelity did that on his album, he left space for us to take in, to feel, to digest, while equally fully getting the beautiful stories of the artists that he decided to include and feature on this album. I just feel like it was 10 out of 10 as far as flow, as far as how this album was sequenced, and the spaciousness. I just felt like there was space. And honey, I love a good interlude, and he had, I think, two or three interludes on here. They were good, and it just carried you perfectly. It felt like it from one set or one mood or one realm or one story or one thought or one piece, chapter, whatever, into the next. I just it's perfect. It was perfect. It was just perfect. 10 out of 10, literally. Also, I'll say the artists that S Fidelity chose to feature on here, so intentional. I just recently watched a video from the producer Nascent, and he talked about the difference between a beat maker and a producer. And I can only summarize because I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically said there's people, who just sit and make beats. He was like, I started as a beat maker, just making, uh, beats in my mom's basement, I think he said. But he was like, a producer is someone who can actually see the vision of a song or a project and make sure you get the right person working the session or the right person to be featured as the voice, and like kind of making sure that everything is cohesive and that it comes together so that it can execute a vision, right? And I just think that S Fidelity did that perfectly, like I said, with the way that he sequenced the album, but also with the voices that he chose to feature. I'm swooning. I am swooning 100%. So that's 10 out of 10 for me. And lastly, opening and closing. This is dope. S Fidelity was actually quite genius with the way that he opened and closed this album and how it perfectly explained and expressed, I think, the concept of the album. So, first of all, the opening song, I felt like it opened perfectly. I felt like it sounded like a first song on an album. And I became excited to listen to the rest of the album because of how I felt when that first song played, right? And I think he opened it perfectly. Um, it just hold it tight, let it go, let it go, hold it tight, let it go, I hold it tight, let it go was literally like the mantra that played over and over. And like I said before, this album was clearly about stories reflecting on being in intimate relationships. Hold it tight, let it go, let it go. When I think about love in those types of realms or love in general, that's literally the dance. Hold it tight, let it go, let it go. So I just felt like that mantra opening the album, along with like that groovy instrumental that he had in the back, perfect opening. Now, the dope part here, here's where we get into the genius part. It closes with the exact same song. I think there's a different voice featured, but it's the exact same uh, instrumental and the exact same like mantra being said. So it's almost like the first song and the last song are exactly the same. Now, when we think about the concept of the album, because I'm about to nerd out, when we think about the concept of the album and the name of the album is I Guess I'll Never Learn. The album started where it started and it ended where it started. Which, for me, what I got from that is as you move through this relationship, whatever, we're just going to say it hypothetically, like maybe the relationship that he was talking about or that each artist was talking about. Um, you go in and out of these different emotional states, these different feeling states, right? These different experiences, and you feel like you get to a place where like you're done or you're over it, or you feel like there's a pattern that you're ready to break, and you feel like I absolutely am going to break this pattern with this person or with this thing. And then you get kind of to this place where you're like, man, forget it. I'll just stay here. Like I'll stay in this cycle. It feels easier to stay in this cycle than it does to break it. It feels like it takes less effort to break this pattern than it does to just stay in it. And I feel like that's where the title, I Guess I'll Never Learn, becomes so genius. And the album ending exactly where it started feels so genius because it feels like he's going through the cycle once again. Let's start this over. Let's go right through it. Like, let's just be insane. It is what it is. Like, I just feel like it was such a human way to express and tell the story of going through an experience with someone and maybe feeling like it's going to be forever or it's going to be this beautiful growth experience, and then you realize that it's not, but instead of stepping out of it you just stay in it or step back in. How real is that? Not healthy, but real and very human. So I just feel like the way that the album opened and the way that it closed and ended was very genius to get that concept across. I just, again, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. All right, so we've run the album through my touchy feely method, and for the most part this is a 10 out of 10 album for me. And what I'll do, because I know you're going to go listen on your own, but what I'll do is I'm actually going to just share a few of my favorites from the album because I have a few. Um, Let me just speak real quick to the voices that he decided to feature. Collard, 10 out of 10. Jerome Thomas, 11 out of 10. I love Jerome Thomas. His voice is so, he gives me, for me, when I think of artist right now, I guess in that R&B realm, he absolutely is the soft masculine archetype. Um, he's just got a fluid energy, and his voice is so distinctive and it's so sultry and sensual and raw to me. I just love Jerome Thomas. So I love that he was featured on this album twice. And then there's a vocalist here called Rael that I don't think I've been introduced to her before this album. So I thank S Fidelity for introducing me to her. I really love her voice. Like I am compelled to go listen to more of her music and dive into her catalog because of her being featured on this album. I just feel like he chose the perfect voices to get his story across and to tell their stories separately and have them fold into each other perfectly. So my first favorite was called Limbo, and that is with S Fidelity and Collard. This, I can listen to this song on repeat. It's so good to me, the way that it kind of like builds up. And it's clearly the artist is talking about like being in this situation where he's like, yo, I wish I was somewhere else. Like, if you could hear how you talking right now, you sound crazy. This is crazy, and I'm trying to get out of here. But also, like, I put a lot in this, and I don't know, so I'm just in limbo. Like, that's kind of what it is. But as like, I guess, heavy as the lyrics and the story is, the feeling of the song is like very behind the veil, very sensual, sexy. It's so interesting. So like the lyrics, you know what I mean? I don't know, kind of little disguised behind like how the beat and the music feel. I love it. I love that's my favorite song. The next one is Play by S Fidelity and Don Richard. This was actually the first single that I ever heard from this project, and I loved it immediately. This is like I guess, like the upbeat club joint. Is really not a club joint, but if I could think of how it feels in comparison to everything else, it just feels like something you could maybe hear out. It's like the upbeat, fun club song that they have on here, but I love it. Don Richard sounds really good. I love S Fidelity sings a little bit in there. It's just, I love it. I love this song. Um, Bobby Hollywood is just an instrumental by S Fidelity, and I love how it feels. It is, I don't know, it's a groove. I just love it. That's just one of my favorite instrumentals from the album. And then So Good with Jerome Thomas. It's so good. This song is like a dimly lit room with some red lace and some heels and lots of candles and a good time. That's what that song feels like. And Jerome Thomas's voice is just like so velvety and silky, and it just makes you feel like you're in the world with him. So, absolutely a favorite. And then the last one is Gray Mirror, and that's with the vocalist Rael. Her vocals just really pull you in. I feel like her voice evokes emotion. On this song specifically, it feels like haunting and a little mysterious. Like you don't even know exactly what she's singing about, but she just sounds tortured and haunting. But I think if I could pick up on the lyrics, like she's saying, it don't matter what she's saying. Go listen. It's just it's good. Like it feels like a sensual vibe, but what she's saying is actually really heavy. So I just those are my favorites on here, but honestly the whole album is really good. I don't skip one thing on I've never skipped, and I've never had the desire to skip anything on the album. So, if you haven't figured out by now, 10 out of 10 for me. I definitely recommend that you listen. Like I said, it's only 34 minutes, so this is absolutely something that you can carve out some time to sit and listen to all the way through. I am excited to hear even more from S Fidelity. I mean, he's got a lot of work out, but I am really excited to just hear what he does moving forward, especially on the other side of this project being so good. And I definitely hope that you go and listen, that you invest some time into listening to S Fidelity's other projects as well. And yeah, let me know when you go listen. Come back into the comments and let me know how you feel. This is like, again, my touchy feely woo woo way of reviewing albums. But I'm going to just say a lot of times when I hear album reviews, I'm bored. I don't feel anything. It all feels very technical, it feels very heady. And so I definitely want to share a different way of being with a piece of work that is body first, that is sensory first, and that allows you to like really slow down and feel into how a project makes you feel. So I'm excited to keep sharing with y'all. And of course, we'll have many other moments in this living room together. But until then, you take care of yourself, drink water, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Okay. Welcome in. No, what?
That's gonna be your usual spot,
Nice to meet
right?
Huh? Yeah. Oh, you feel.
We're finna look stupid real quick. Perfect.
Is it already? Have you been recording that whole time?
Kinda.
So you just trying to use me for bloopers?
Nah. I'm
Well,
serious.
I'm gonna be sitting up like this
Nah.
and don't say nothing. I remember that was a Roots song. And it was his album, The Fidelity. What the? Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. So next, the body test. And there was also a perfect balance between. Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Ah. Yeah. It's so good. Okay.